Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got Joe Rogan sitting down with Bill Burr. That's the joke that's going on right now as Joe Rogan sits down with Billy Corgan. Now, this clip that I'm about to show you, this for me is complete proof that Bill Burr and this dude actually do have the same dad. He's going to go into a story about how his dad was tied up in the mob and just an overall wild man. And then I'm going to give you my thinking on this whole thing, because you guys don't know, but I am an avid Bill Burr watcher. His podcasts, his cartoons, his interviews, everything. So let's get into it.
That's his name, Tommy Litnick. And he doesn't like the idea.
Yeah, I wonder why. You just outed him.
But, I mean, we don't have time for it, but I could make you a list of 50 people that are super famous, like Bono on down, who have pulled me aside and go, what's the deal with Tommy? Right? And just the fact that we're talking about Tommy will really please Tommy, but he'll take umbrage. In fact, I have to tell you a story about my father too, but he'll take umbrage with the way I'm portraying him.
I'm sure he will.
The story I wanted to tell you about my father was when I was on your show, I told you a story about how I found a double-barreled sawed-off shotgun under my father's bed. It was in a guitar case.
Right.
Well, my father heard the show about a month after I told the story on your show. And so I get this text from my father when he's still alive, obviously, and he goes, yeah, I heard what you said on Joe's show. And I'm like, you're looking at your phone like, here it comes, because I thought he was going to be pissed at me. He goes, there's one thing you left out of the story. Waiting, text. The shotgun wasn't loaded. That's all he wanted me to know. Like somehow it made it better.
How bizarre. Your father sounds like a fucking character.
He was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
What did he play?
Guitar.
Wow.
Great musician. Really, truly great musician. He's the classic guy that should have made it, it didn't. So when I made it, it made the whole thing really weird.
Oh.
Because he looked at me and said, how did my schlubby kid make it? And I didn't.
Wow.
He must have gotten lucky. He must have done something. Because if it didn't work for me, how could it work for him? So that was a weird thing. But he was talented. I mean, he really was talented.
That's great. Did you feel resentment? Did you get along with him after that?
It was
weird?
My father had a lot of issues with drugs, so it was always kind of like it can be with addicts. It was like depending on the day. One day he would tell me I was the greatest thing that ever happened to him, and I was the number one son, and da-da-da. And 2 weeks later, he's telling me he wished I'd never been born, and I should have been aborted. So it was weird. It was a weird thing. So that's why that story's funny to me, because he didn't mind that I told you about finding a sawed-off shotgun. He minded that I implied it was dangerous when he made sure that it wasn't loaded, so it was okay. That's the way his brain worked.
Do you believe him that it wasn't loaded?
Yeah. He was he should have been an arch criminal or something, but he didn't have the nerve.
So he just became a guitarist.
No, he was a drug dealer, and he used to run drugs and guns for the mob. I mean,
really?
Oh, he would do stuff like. Melrose Park is kind of an infamous city just outside the Chicago city limits where a lot of the mob wise guys lived. And he was friends with the kid of a wise guy. And the kid would dabble because he was protected because his father was a made man. So we go over to that guy's house for hours and just hear these crazy stories about the mob. And my dad would pick up something in a satchel and deliver it. Like it was all, I was 8 years old going through all this shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a crazy environment.
Yeah.
So you're 8 years old. He's running drugs and guns.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you see like a lot of shit?
I saw a lot of stuff, but it was like, when adults are trying to hide stuff from you, but not really.
Uh-huh.
So like, for example, they would stay in the basement all night, party, whoever he was with, musicians, whatever.
Right.
So I'd come down at night and it'd be coke everywhere and rolled up 20s
How old were you?
on Black Sabbath mirrors. I was like 7, 10.
Oh my God.
So I had a feeling, call it intuition. I had a feeling that he wanted me to clean up, but not the mirrors. And I was like, what's on the mirror that you left behind? He was like, oh, that's have a cold or something. But yeah, it's good you didn't get rid of it. And they're like, why do you need the rolled up 20? Oh, it's just easier to, It was like, so you knew it was bullshit, but you're 10. You don't know what coke is.
Right.
So you don't have any concept of what they're doing, but something's going on.
And this was constant. This was
yeah,
normal.
and my dad would do stuff like he'd take me to lunch with his mistresses and stuff and introduce them as his friends. And
wow.
so it was all kind of in plain sight weirdness. But, you'd be driving down the street and suddenly you were in a drug deal and it was just...
Whoa.
He told me he was shot at 9 times and stabbed 3 times.
Holy shit.
Yeah. You want to hear? It was one of my favorite stories.
Yeah.
So, the band had a van. He had a van, and we bought it off him. It was our band van for a while. And then after we didn't need it anymore because we got too big. He wanted to buy it back, so we sold it to him. So one day I went over to his house, and if this is the driver's thing, right behind the driver's, where the driver's head would be, but in the metal of the car was a bullet hole. So I said, "Did somebody shoot at you?" He goes, "Oh yeah." I said, "Well, what happened?" Yeah, exactly. He's like, "Yeah, I was stopped over there on Narragansett, and some guy came up, and I thought he needed something like $1 or something. So I rolled down the window. As soon as I did, he put a gun through the window at my head, and then I hit the gas and sped off. And so as I went, he tried to shoot me, but then he missed, and the bullet went in behind my head, and I got away." That's the story he told me at the time. So years later, the story came back up somehow. And he goes, "Oh, that wasn't the real story. Here's the real story." So same setup. He's sitting somewhere, but it was a drug deal. He rolls down the window to make the drug deal. Guy puts a gun at his head. He does hit the gas. The guy does try to shoot him. But because my father's mad now, he spins the van around and he tries to run the guy over. And the guy's trucking down the street. And the guy ran into a gas station. So my dad came barreling into the gas station at full speed in this van, and he was going to run the guy over. And he said he reached a point where the guy was going to, if the guy stopped, he would run him over, but the guy leapt a fence, and the only way to kill the guy was to have to run the fence and ram into a house that was next to the gas station. So he hit the brakes and didn't run the guy over. So that was the real story. So back to the kid thing, excuse me, that's why it's so hard to pin this whole thing down, because there's so much smoke,
Right.
Like, he did tell me there was another kid named Bill. That's a real thing.
Wow.
And when he told me when I was 18, he lied and said he didn't know where the kid was. Well, when my stepmother brought up the whole Bill Burr thing later, and I asked him, he admitted that he did know where the kid was, but he didn't want to tell me.
What did Bill think about this? Like the possibility that his mother had an affair with your dad?
I don't think Bill gives it any credence. I mean, that's my sense of it.
Okay. He just thinks it's bullshit.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what Bill thinks. You know what I mean? Because
I can see how you would think it'd be possible, because your dad was insane. Your dad sounds like a fucking maniac.
I mean, the only way
like
the only way it would
Scorsese movie maniac.
Well, put it this way: if a person doesn't believe that somebody is their father, not their real father that they grew up with, and I do know people who've had that. They grew up with somebody, and in fact, it just happened in my family.
Right.
That a cousin of mine found out that her father was not her father, and she's in her 60s because of a DNA test.
Oh my God.
So. It is possible that people can find out later in life, oh, by the way, that guy that you thought was your dad, he ain't your dad. Here's your real dad, right?
Right.
So it does happen. But I don't get any sense from Bill that he believes that's possible.
Got it.
So the only way it would be possible if Bill grew up in some kind of weird lie. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And I don't believe that. You know?
Right. Well, I don't know. I don't know how much he's talked about his family. But I just can't imagine a kid coming downstairs and seeing Coco over the mirrors and Black Sabbath albums and people blacked out and empty booze everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Like this is a normal thing at your house to have these wild parties.
Yeah.
And you're a
But
little
I think
kid.
to be fair, I think a lot of people grow up in that atmosphere. I think we just don't hear about it.
Yeah, but not a lot of people grew up with a dad that's running guns and drugs for the mob.
That's true. That's true. That is true.
That's so insane. That's such a crazy way.
Like we would have
to grow
conversations, because, as you get older, you start to ask questions, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say, Dad, aren't you worried, like, if you get pulled over, because he would carry, like, a lot of fucking weed in the car just for his own personal use. He smoked constantly, like, my whole childhood. Like, I mean, I just remember joint after joint all day. At the dinner table, in the car, I'd contact high and the whole thing. So finally, at some point, I said, Daddy, aren't you worried about if you get pulled over? And he like, popped the engine, old cars, when you pop the trunk. What is it called? The hood.
The hood.
He had figured out some system where if you put weed in a thing full of whiskey, he said that the dogs couldn't pick up on the scent. So there was like a compartment in the engine compartment, like a thing that was full of whiskey, and then he would put a waterproof baggie with the weed in the whiskey, and so that if a dog came around the car, it would never smell it.
That's hilarious.
So it was like life lessons, from Pop.
How many? But dogs can only smell one thing. They're only looking for one thing. When you train a dog either for a bomb or you train him for heroin. You don't train a dog for everything. Like, what do you got? 3 barks for coke. The way they train dogs is it's one thing that they're trained to smell.
Oh, right, they have one.
Yeah, they're good. If they're looking for bombs, they're only looking for bombs. They're not going to stop you for weed.
Yeah, I don't
which
know.
is like the dumbest thing to train a dog for. If you train a dog for weed, I mean,
Well, now, yeah.
now it's the dumbest, but they still do. They
Really?
still have weed dogs. Yeah. If they smell weed, they'll call the weed dog.
Is weed legal in Texas? I don't know.
It's not. It's weird. It's decriminalized. There was actually a lawsuit that Ken Paxton tried to stop Dallas from decriminalizing weed, and they just lost in court. So Dallas now, marijuana is decriminalized for personal use. It's stupid. It should be the whole country. It should be legal, just like whiskey is. Don't do it if you don't want to do it. But, you should probably know what the effects are, and we should probably study what the actual correct dose is per person.
I don't know what he's talking about. I every time I go in my backyard, I smell weed from both neighbors. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's not, but it is. It's Austin. It's the way it is. You smell it all the time, everywhere, and you don't really see cops getting all uppity about it. You know what I mean? Now, from that story that he just said, I am an avid Bill Burr podcast watcher, listener. All the times with Nina, his wife, and the cartoons and the interviews. And I've watched the whole thing go on with Bill Burr for a long time. Now, here's the thing. Both their dads are dead. That's interesting. So, and again, I think their dad is the same person. So, they're both dead, okay? Even the way that they both say, yeah, I noticed that in that clip. He's like, yeah. Bill Burr. Bill Burr? Yeah. They both have that same thing. His dad was a wise guy, okay? So, his dad's a wise guy. Now, if you don't know wise guys, okay, I didn't grow up around wise guys, but definitely have seen them from afar, allegedly. Now, they're wild people. Exactly the way that Billy is painting his father. He probably wasn't made, but he's probably an affiliate, which is why he was running things for them, doing the little, put it in your satchel, go bring things here, there. That's how you make your bones in the whole thing. The thing about that is, a dude like that, who's that crazy, that's because at the end, he says, I don't think Bill grew up in a lie. That guy, and I'm not saying that he's a liar, but he would have no problem doing something like that. That is a wise guy thing. They have a family here and a family there. Why? Because they're doing stuff in Chicago and they got a little thing set up there. And then, Bill Burr case, you got something going on in Boston and you got a girl there as well. You got a girl there, a kid, this, that. Yeah, there's a whole thing over there. And you never talk about it. And anytime you get into trouble around here, you go lay low over there and vice versa. This 100% makes sense from hearing this wild story. Wise guys do this. Wise guys and wise guy adjacent people do this type of thing. They got one family, they got another family. They might even have a third, because everywhere they go, they have a mistress. And what else did this guy say? That his dad had a bunch of mistresses. This guy's a wise guy. Of course he has a kid. Of course he has other kids. That's just what they do. And they don't have to be super rich while they're doing it. That's not the lifestyle. The wise guy lifestyle is so seductive, but it's not the most lucrative. Like, yeah, we hear about the super rich ones who are making like cartel type of money. We hear about that. The Gaudis, you know what I mean? We hear about that. The Bulgers. We hear about that. But most of the time, a lot of them, they got what they got. And they got respect, which is the thing that they worry about the most anyway. They're not worried about having all this money. They're worried about following the code, doing what's right, what's right in the whole thing. So 100%, to me, this solidifies that this is his dad. Constant danger. Then on top of that, insane anger. This guy tries to run somebody down. If you watch Bill Burr talk about his dad, if you watch the sets where he talks about his dad, if you watch the cartoon where he has a character that's based on his dad, insane anger to the point where he's trying to run people over. I think that's even a thing that happens in Bill Burr's cartoon. I think that's a thing that Bill Burr actually talks about on stage. So right away, it's like this guy's doing the exact, whoever this dude is, he's living two lives and he's doing the exact same thing, except around Bill Burr, he's staying away from drugs. He's not showing Bill any of that. But over here, he goes wild. Of course. And the thing is, he's going wild over there with Billy, and he's staying pretty straight-laced with Bill Burr. Probably Billy was the one that was living the lie. That's more than likely what was going on here. It's not that Bill Burr was being kept in the shadows. No. That's where he was straight-laced. Straight-laced, doing the right thing, teaching his son good values, being very, very hard on his son. I'll show you a clip right now. I didn't even plan to show you this. It's the most wide. It's like an emotional Bill Burr clip, which you don't see very often. How many minutes until Trump's speech? 68 minutes. So I'm going live with that speech. I don't know about everybody else. Let's see the Bill Burr. Just type in emotional Bill Burr. If I type that in, it should pop up. Let's see. Bill Burr, emotional. Emotional about dad. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Beautiful. Play this.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. How's it going? Awesome. All right. This is my story. I was dating this girl like 2 years ago. I've been dating her for like 8 months, and she wanted to meet my parents. She was really giving me shit, like, how come I haven't met your parents? Aww. And, I never brought anybody home to meet my parents. I was like 30 years old. Never brought anybody home. I didn't ever like meeting people in general. I didn't want to meet her parents. I always hated when you had to meet, go out with somebody, you got to, meet their friends and shit. Sitting at the table, trying
Early
to be...
Bill Burr, nervous, man. Hold on. Let me just find the thing where he's talking about that.
I remember, I think it was when I was first grade, we saw that start. And I just never brought him home. So I started thinking, how the hell did that start? As we're basically driving up from New York to go to my house to finally meet my parents. And I remember, I think it was when I was first grade, we used to have a bus stop, and it was right out in front of my house. And my parents used to always be arguing. And my dad was like a maniac, always screaming, "Goddamn fucking bitch." Just total psycho. My dad was like a complete psychopath, his nickname in my house was called The Thing. Because that's what he was. He was his fucking thing. That if he wasn't around, we'd say, "Dude, is The Thing home?" If he wasn't home, you could chill. He was just never in a good mood. So one day I'm down at the bus stop. There's 10 other kids down there and shit. We're all in first grade, second grade, third grade, waiting for the bus. And it's towards the summertime, so my parents got the windows open and shit. So I can start to hear an argument starting, "Well, what the fuck do you mean you didn't know?" And then I'm sitting there going please let the bus come, please, for Christ's sake. And all of a sudden, "You goddamn fucking bitch!" Screaming and shit. And I remember just looking at all the other kids' looks on their faces, I guess, this is way before cable, so most kids never even heard curses, so they couldn't believe it. And that's when it really hit me that, man, my family's really, really screwed up. And I started going over other kids' houses, and their parents seemed to get along, and they were cool. And so the whole time I'm driving back, my girlfriend coming up, all this stuff is coming back, and I'm thinking, and I really get all like I'm a 6-year-old kid again, getting all nervous. It says, "To Bill from Santa." And I'm what the fuck? Guy got me a goddamn doll. He came downstairs and he's laughing and shit. And he's making me take a picture. I'm 6 years old and crying and stuff. And I'm thinking of this shit as I'm pulling into the driveway, and I'm freaking out because I'm finally gonna bring somebody home to meet this fucking maniac. And I'm telling her, I don't know how this guy's gonna be or whatever. So we walk into the house, it's candles and shit, Christmas tree, it's all real nice, dim lights and stuff. She comes in, she meets my dad, and the dude is totally normal. After me building this guy up the whole ride back, he's fucking that dude from Leave It to Beaver. He's the nicest guy ever. He's all cordial. And I remember I'm just getting pissed at the guy. Going, why isn't he being a dick? And she's sitting there taking me aside going, he's the greatest guy. And I can't believe he's saying all that stuff. He's smart, he's intelligent, he's so interested in what I have to say. I remember I was so pissed at the guy. I really hated him when I was growing up. To the point, I remember one time, He went out the driveway, and he's running out to his car, and he slipped and fell and broke his shoulder. And at that point, me and my brother so fucking hated this guy. When he came to the house, my mother's like taking care of him. We snuck out the back door to look at his footprints in the snow to see where he slipped and fell. And I'm telling you, we were laughing our asses off at this guy. You're right there, that's right where he... Fuck, why couldn't I have seen that? So he ended up being like the sweetest guy ever, and there was nothing anxious about it. I like worried about it for like, I don't know, from the beginning of the time, dating girls like 15, and I just ended up feeling really stupid. And I was kind of pissed. I was just looking at the guy going, why the fuck couldn't he have been like this, 20 years ago when I needed him to be like that, rather than, being the way he was. But, I always want to talk to him about it, but we don't communicate, so I guess it is what it is. And that's my story. Thanks.
So, like I was saying, this guy, Bill Burr's words, not mine, was a maniac. Billy Corgan's dad, for the most part, sounded like a maniac, sounded like a wild man. What are the odds that these guys look the same? Okay, because they do. I saw someone in the comments of my first video. They're like, "Oh, they look like Woody Harrelson and Woody." I'm like, "Yeah, who are you kidding? Who are you kidding? Who are you kidding?" They look the same, have the same shaped head. When their beards grow, they look the same. They got the same smile. Literally, Billy's stepmom is like, your stepbrother is Bill Burr. She's telling him that is who your stepson is. He says you have a brother named Bill. What are we talking about here? Why is this even... What DNA test is necessary right now? Are you guys kidding me right now? And then on top of everything, you hear that wild story from Corgan. And Burr has the exact same type of experience with a man just like that. It seems like what would happen is he would go to Chicago because he had something going on there where he was dealing and running and doing everything and trying to make his bones with the mob. And then he would go to Boston and he would even out a little bit and probably had some things going on there as well that he didn't expose his kids to. It's probably what it was. One mother was probably like, "Hey, that's dad." And the other mother was probably like, he probably presented her different. I know before I was married, there were other women who would bring out a completely different version of me. This woman here brings out the best version of me. That's just the way it goes. So I think they're 100% related. I think it's not even a discussion. And how about that story that Bill Burr just told, huh? Dad got him a doll. He's crying about it, which is something to cry about. It's a crazy thing to do. Now that I hear stories about kids, like Sean Strickland has this. He's a UFC fighter. He has this traumatic story about just when he was 1 year old, just something happening to him. And it's just like, my kid's one. It's like, how do you do something to a 1 year old other than just hug and kiss him? He's talking about being 6 there. It's like, how do you do anything to us? They're basically still a baby. They barely even know how to talk properly. You know what I mean? They can run, but they run long enough, they'll just fall, and then they need you to help them up. Like, how could you do anything to a young kid like that? I always find that so mind-boggling, man. But that's my argument on the whole thing. Go watch Bill Burr's cartoon. What is it called? F is for Family. Go watch that cartoon. Dad has to go at times, comes back at times, straight lace. Again, he's based on Bill Burr's father. It's the whole... It's his family, but they take some comedic license to really make a story and make a season, as you would, right? But, man, this is a very, very similar guy. And then also and then on top of that, everything passes away at the same time. Both their dads are dead. How about that? Well, this is not rocket science here, guys. This is very easy to piece together. These two are brothers because their dad was a mobster type person, And Billy was thinking, oh, my dad didn't make it. He was just doing things for the mob. It's like, you do things for the mob for a while, and then you get in. That's how it works. You do enough, You show enough loyalty, you're in eventually. Or maybe you just hang back. Maybe you're not Italian enough. There's other things that can happen, but yeah, don't ask me why I know so much about it. But watch a lot of movies. That's all. But yeah, they're definitely related. That solidified it for me. Some guy was in the comments. He's like, I actually watched the whole podcast. How do you? The thing is, I guess because I watch an abnormal amount of content all the time. Everything's double speed, triple speed, where it will allow me. So I've listened to so much Bill Burr. I've listened to him talk about his dad so much. And that story that guy just told, it's the same guy. It's the exact same guy. And Bill knows, which is why Bill was in that clip with Howie Mandel, and he was sitting back and he was willing to have a conversation about their dad. That's why he was willing to have that conversation, because he knows. He understands. And then on top, let's see if we can find a picture of Bill Burr's dad. Because Billy Corgan, Bill Burr's father, Billy Corgan says that Bill Burr looks just like his dad. Come on. Bill Burr has spoken about his father, who was a dentist. See, and that's exactly what a mob guy would say. I'm a dentist. And he'd go off and break somebody's face, Robert Burr, that's his name. Here, if you want to know what I'm looking at this. Trying to find a picture. Robert Burr. Let's see if we can figure out something here. Let's go to images. Let's see if it'll give us that. Robert Edmund Burr. So supposedly that's him. Right? Okay. So that's what we're seeing so far. Understanding Bill Burr's parents. So buddy, that guy, he looks like the guy from Goodfellas. What are we talking about here? He looks like the dude from Goodfellas. I'm disappointed in myself that I don't know the name. I want to say Ray Lito, but I know that's wrong, and I can't be wrong about this. I gotta just say, Goodfellas main character. He looks just like this guy. What are we talking about here? Who's the main character? Henry Hill. Ray Lito. Okay, so I was right. Yeah, that's who he looks like. Come on. What are we talking about here? Boys? Huh? Look at this. Come on. Put the picture up there. Come on. Back in the days. Come on. They look like they're friends. Hey, Burr, did you get the thing? Did you get the thing from the guy? I got the thing from the guy, but I'm doing my honeymoon tonight. Listen, I got a thing in Boston I got to handle. I got the honeymoon tonight. Listen, I need the thing. I mean, you already know, Tommy. You know how Tommy gets. Come on. Don't do this to me, man. Don't make me have to face Tommy without the thing. Okay, I won't make you face Tommy without the thing. If he knows that you have the thing and you didn't bring it to him, you're going to have Tommy. I get it. We're on the phone here. All right. I'll see you soon. Oh, get out of here. Come on. Anyways, guys, that's all I got to say.